Welcome to the Moonlight Tales. Before we begin, take a moment to get comfortable, settle in, breathe slowly, and let the day fade away. Tonight's tale is called Ink Ember. After a quiet walk along a harbor lined with crimson and gold trees, you find a small bookshop tucked among the evening lights. Inside, the air is warm and fragrant with paper and tea. A fire burns softly in the hearth, and time itself seems to slow. Here, in the glow of ink and ember, you'll discover the kind of peace that lingers, the warmth that remains long after the flame. Now close your eyes and still your mind as we begin our tale. The afternoon carries that particular hush only fall can hold. A pause between breath and memory. The air is cool, crisp enough to enliven the skin, yet softened by the warmth of distant sun. Along the harbor promenade, a gentle wind stirs the branches of red and gold maples, their leaves sweeping down in spirals of light. The sound of them brushing against one another is like paper turning, a rustle that could almost be mistaken for the whisper of pages in some great unseen book. The world feels suspended in amber. The light, touched by the low sun, has begun its slow descent into the kind of gold that looks almost tangible. Your boots move through a patchwork of color underfoot, crunching through drifts of ochre and crimson. Some leaves crumble easily, others curl and cling to the cobblestones, reluctant to let go. The scent in the air is layered salt from the harbor, wood smoke from a nearby chimney, and the sweetness of fallen leaves beginning to dry. To your right, the harbor ripples with the reflection of late light. Small sailboats drift at anchor, their hulls rocking lazily as the tide turns. A loose halyard clinks against a metal mast with a rhythm as steady as breathing. Somewhere farther out, a gull calls out, its voice softened by distance. You walk slowly, not because you are tired, but because there is no reason not to. The day seems to invite lingering. Every storefront holds its own glow. A florist arranging chrysanthemums, a baker dusting sugar over warm pastries, a cafe with the smell of roasted coffee curling out into the street. The scent of cinnamon passes by, then vanishes, replaced by the faint metallic tang of sea air. The wind shifts, carrying with it a handful of leaves that swirl in a sudden dance before settling at your feet. Their motion feels deliberate, choreographed by the breeze itself. You watch them until the last one falls still, the edges trembling like resting wings. There's a kind of peace that comes only in these hours between warmth and chill, when the body remembers summer, but the air insists on change. Fall feels honest in that way. Nothing hides, everything glows a little brighter. just before it lets go. The promenade curves gently, leading you past a painter's studio with canvases propped against the wall. Each one catches a fragment of light, a boat, a row of trees, the suggestion of figures walking by. You glimpse yourself in the reflection of the glass, a solitary traveler framed by color and motion, just another part of the evening's quiet composition. Then, around the next bend, you see it. A sign hangs above a modest storefront, its paint softened by years but lovingly cared for. The letters read, Ink and Ember, gilded faintly in gold that catches the last rays of sunlight. Beneath them, a painted image of an ink bottle, wreathed in golden flame, gleams faintly through the haze of dusk. The building's windows are slightly wavy with age, holding that nostalgic texture that distorts the world just enough to make it beautiful. Inside, the light glows amber and steady. You can almost feel its warmth through the glass, see the faint movement of dust caught in the fading beams. A single red maple stands beside the entrance, its branches stretching over the sign. A few leaves brush against the glass door, as if they too are trying to enter. You pause for a moment on the threshold, letting the breeze move past you, watching the harbor shimmer behind you and the glow waiting ahead. Then, with quiet anticipation, you reach for the door. The bell above the door rings softly as you step inside. Warmth greets you first, wrapping around your shoulders with quiet generosity. The scent follows. Aged paper, cedar shells, faint spice, and something else, more ephemeral, like the trace of wood smoke after a hearth has cooled. The bustle of the harbor fades behind the thick door. The interior hums with peace. Afternoon light filters through the old glass in long amber beams, catching on drifting motes of dust that shimmer like tiny stars. The sound of a slow piano plays somewhere distant, each note lingering, fading gently into the hush. The space feels smaller than it looks from the outside, but deeper, layered with shelves that seem to lead back through time. Each book leans a little into its neighbor, as if sharing a secret. The floors creak faintly underfoot, old wood remembering every visitor who has ever crossed it. Somewhere beyond the front counter, you sense movement, the quiet presence of the shopkeeper, but she does not intrude. The atmosphere is one of unspoken understanding. This place exists for stillness. You wander through the narrow aisles, fingertips gliding across the spines. The texture shifts from linen to leather, from embossed gilt to soft paper. Titles whisper their invitations. Letters from the sea, the autumn lanterns, echoes in the fog. Each one seems meant for this hour, for this light. The air is thick with quiet history. A loose page rustles faintly from somewhere deeper within the shop, followed by the creak of an old shelf adjusting its weight. It feels as though the building itself breathes. A small draft moves between the aisles, carrying with it the faintest scent of tea. You pass a shelf on travelogues, worn journals, some with thin ribbons marking forgotten pages. The handwriting on one spine catches your attention. Neat and deliberate, journeys north. You pull it free, feeling the gentle give of its binding. The paper is yellowed, the ink slightly faded, but still precise. A dried petal is pressed between the two pages, pale and translucent as memory. You smile and return the book carefully to its place. Farther along, a collection of poetry rests under a small brass reading lamp. The light is mellow and golden, pooling around the covers as though blessing them. You can hear faintly the sound of fire crackling somewhere deeper in the store. You take 2 more books from the shelf, one of poems, one of stories about small towns and quiet people, and cradle them in your arm. The simple act of holding them feels grounding, like a ritual known long before you ever arrived. At the end of the aisle, the shelves part to reveal a warm alcove. The light there is deeper, richer, pulsing faintly with the rhythm of firelight. You step closer, drawn as if by gravity itself. The alcove feels like the heart of the bookshop. It is small and perfectly balanced, half library, half living room. The walls are lined in red wallpaper, elegantly patterned, framed by carved wooden skirting. A small fireplace rests against one wall, its flames low and steady, casting a glow that flickers across the bindings of nearby books. Beside the fire sits a deep leather armchair, cracked slightly with age, but perfectly kept, its color a rich chestnut that drinks the light. Next to it, a small table bears a tray with a teapot, 2 cups, and a plate of homemade shortbread. Steam curls upward, carrying the scent of black tea and maple. The window beside the chair overlooks the harbor. Through it, you see trees swaying in the wind, red and gold leaves sweeping past in small gusts. Sunlight filters through them, painting the glass with streaks of copper and rose. The beams fall across the armchair and the floor in radiant slants, illuminating dust motes that drift lazily in the air like embers suspended mid-flight. You settle into the chair, the leather sighs beneath you, soft and welcoming. The fire crackles quietly to your left. You pour a cup of tea and watch the amber swirl against the porcelain before taking a sip. It's rich and comforting, its warmth spreading through you until even the edges of thought begin to soften. The tea's sweetness lingers on your tongue. The air tastes faintly of firewood and warmth, with a trace of spice. You breathe it in deeply, and you feel your shoulders lower, your body learning the room's slower rhythm. You open the first book, the green one, and begin to read. The story within unfolds at an unhurried pace, a journey through small towns and half-forgotten letters, the kind that feel like memories. The words move gently, their rhythm matching your breath. Outside, a gust of wind sends leaves tumbling past the window, a sudden burst of gold and crimson. A few tap the glass before slipping away again. The fire pops softly, its glow deepening. The longer you read, the more the words begin to fade, not in meaning, but in presence. They become part of the room's breathing, the same quiet pulse as the ticking clock, or the crackle of fire. The story becomes less about the characters and more about the stillness it creates. You reach for another biscuit, dipping it gently into your tea until the edge softens. It melts on your tongue like sugared air. The second book, the collection of poems, waits patiently at your side. You lift it and turn a few pages, landing on one about twilight, about how light, when leaving, lingers longest where it's loved most. You read it twice, and then you close the book and simply look around. The way the firelight touches the shelves, the faint gleam on the brass lamp, the reflection of trees moving gently beyond the glass. The world has become a still life painted entirely in warmth. You lean back into the chair. For a while, you are not reading or thinking or doing. You are only existing, cradled by firelight and the scent of tea, as outside the day leans softly into dusk. Time becomes difficult to measure. Perhaps an hour has passed, perhaps more. The sun outside has lowered further, painting the harbor in streaks of bronze and violet. The window glows like an old photograph, slightly faded, utterly beautiful. The flames in the fireplace have gentled to a slow rhythm, curling like script against the blackened wood. Shadows from the fire dance across the bookshelves, shifting in patterns that resemble waves or the turning of unseen pages. There is no sound now but the faint hiss of burning wood and the occasional whisper of the wind outside. The world beyond feels very far away. You draw the blanket draped across the chair's arm over your legs, feeling its soft weight anchor you. You take another slow breath, and it feels as though the entire room breathes with you, expanding, contracting in perfect rhythm. A thought surfaces, quiet but clear. How rare it is to find places that ask nothing of you. Not your time, not your words, not your attention. Only your presence. You rest your hands against the closed book and allow yourself to simply be. Outside, the harbor lights begin to bloom, golden reflections spreading over the darkening water like tiny suns adrift. The wind has softened now, and the leaves fall less in flurries than in single graceful gestures. The world feels unhurried, tender in its stillness. You look toward the window and watch as faint reflections of the shelves blend with the deepening twilight beyond the glass. The room and the outside world merge into one quiet tapestry of color and light. The air hums with warmth. The fire's glow ripples over the books. over your hands, and across the floor in waves of living amber. You could almost believe the shop itself is dreaming, breathing through the rhythm of the fire, resting with you in shared peace. The teapot is empty now, the last of its warmth held in the porcelain. The book lies open again on your lap, unread for several pages, because the story outside its pages feels richer. The turning of light, the quiet ache of beauty in small things, the gentle persistence of peace when you allow it to arrive. You exhale slowly. Maybe this is what embers truly are. Not the last breath of a flame, but the quiet warmth that stays behind when everything else has gone still. A warmth that asks for nothing, yet offers itself freely, steady through the dark, constant as breath. Every life, you realize, carries its own embers, moments that never truly fade, rooms that once felt like safety, hands that held yours for a while, stories that left a gentle glow behind the heart. They remain even when the fire has long since gone out, not demanding to be remembered, only waiting to be felt again when the night grows cold. You look at the fire, at the soft rise and fall of its glow, and you understand that beauty was never meant to last forever. Its purpose is not to endure, but to be known, to be felt, even for a heartbeat, and to linger quietly long after the flame. The wind moves outside again, a whisper against the glass, and a few stray leaves drift past, small flickers of color against the dark. You take one last slow breath. The chair holds you. The fire murmurs. The light fades to a deep, honeyed calm. Here, in this quiet shop, the world feels home. And as the night gathers beyond the harbor, you remain within the warmth of the ink and ember, unhurried, content, and perfectly at peace. And with that, dear dreamer, our tale for tonight comes to an end. I hope it brought you some small measure of peace and comfort. Until our next tale unfolds, I bid you good night and sweet dreams.